4 tips to either keep buyers engaged or re-engage your buyers. Hi, my friends. Clint Stitzer with Stitzer Properties and the Purposeful Practitioner. And if you look at this graphic we're throwing up on the screen now, Damas Analytics said in Reno, in Northern Nevada, year over year, this week last year versus this week this year, contracts written are 25% lower. If you look a couple weeks back, year over year, it's like 30% lower. So whether we like to believe it or not believe it, volume is down. And what that means is that for those of us who are working with buyers or have buyers, we have to use our toolkit to keep them engaged. So here are 4 tips that you can use. Tip number 1, read the news, read the Fed. The expectation is that inflation is still there, rates are going up, and if the 10-year rate goes up, that so drives mortgage interest rates. So if we have buyers that are on the edge of affordability with current interest rates and current prices, man oh man, is now the time to take into consideration to grab a rate that you can afford because the expectation is we've still got some inflation to fight, okay? So grab it while it's there, tip number 1. Tip number 2 is that the recent findings by the economists for the National Association of Home Builders is that demand for the Intermountain West is expected to stay strong. Sure, is there a shifting period where maybe it's not just gonna be this highly accelerated market? Absolutely. But if you have a buyer who's looking in the long term and says, man, well, if you say rates are gonna go up, then the market has got to continue to come down with it. Well, the counter to that is, yes, that might happen in certain markets across the US that as having people leaving, but demand for the Intermountain West for all stages of life, from retirees to young families, is continuing to grow. And I'd humbly submit that Reno is at the forefront of those marketplaces. So if we have really strong long-term demand and increasing rates and someone can afford now, it's really a compelling opportunity to get into the market and find the deal that works for them. Okay. Tip number 3 is go revisit those new home communities. Look, new home builders do not do well. They are not in the business of building homes and sitting on them. They're in the business of building homes and selling them. And with contracts going down and builders working really hard to catch up with demand, remember they were getting beat up time and time again, build more, build more. Well, guess what? Now certain communities might have some standing inventory. They might have homes under construction that are unsold that they need to sell. So you might be able to find for your buyers an interest rate buy down. You might be able to find for your buyers maybe some free options, maybe reduce lot premium. There are opportunities to get great deals in new home communities relative to what it used to be 3 or 4 months ago. Whether it's interest rate or incentives, I humbly submit that you might find great opportunity, and it's a great conversation to have with your buyers. Okay. Tip number 4 is that construction material costs have not alleviated. The cost to build an apartment complex has not alleviated. And by the way, the borrowing cost for the owners of those apartment complexes is going up. And so if we're looking at the supply side of apartments and other housing products, and the supply side pressures are still there, and the borrowing costs, the ownership costs are going up, that doesn't equate to lower rents. Occupancy is still way up, vacancy is still way down, and rents year over year are still up. So if you have a buyer that's on the edge and says, I'm just gonna keep renting, well, guess what? We're still fundamentally undersupplied, and the cost to build and the cost of ownership is still high, still creating upward and steady pressure on rents. So it kind of becomes a situation, do I wanna lock in my interest rate, my ownership cost? Sure, taxes and maintenance and insurance vary. Or do you wanna be subject to the rental market that is also subject to construction inflation and borrowing rates and still fundamental undersupply? So 4 things that you can use to have great conversations with your buyers to keep them engaged or re-engage them. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. This is Clint Stitzer wishing you great success in your real estate practice.